It's Monday, November 3rd, 2014. Welcome to week 8 of Have a Ball, writing your first novel. As your pacer, whether you are working on your first novel in real time with this YouTube video journey, or whether you're coming to it at some point thereafter, this is week 8. So 8 weeks into your process, whenever you started. As your pacer, uh, you've got last week you started, or yeah, you began the process of giving the first third of your novel to readers so that they can give you some feedback on what the reading experience is. So you have at this point, week 8, you've got 6 to 10 chapters out, and some of your feedback might be coming in because you've given your readers 2 weeks, a firm 2 weeks, to get it back to you. So they have until next week, week 9. However, different people will start to give you feedback sooner, which is great. So as that feedback is coming in the meantime, and I do suggest you don't go right into it, because you have the remaining 2/3 of your book that you want to continue to work on. You want to continue to work throughout the different levels of the funnel. And by now you've realized that while I have introduced them independently, they don't operate independently. You're moving in and out of them depending upon where you are in that iterative, that rotational process in shaving away from the hunks and plunks of raw clay to an elegant emerging story of your novel. So they're going to be, your 32 chapters are going to be in different stages of that funnel. Some, particularly, let's say the first third of your novel, is going to be more polished because you got that ready to send that out to readers. So that's going to be more polished. So while this is the second week folks are reading the first third of your novel, other readers have started to give you feedback. And even if you've met with them in person, or you've Skyped with them, or you've phoned them, or they've sent you the manuscript with notes and you've gotten feedback, just put that aside and continue to work iteratively through your other chapters. So this is how you can be, again, this is how I call it being playful. And part of being playful is working smarter, not harder, which is more the lexicon of business. But your readers haven't finished doing what they need to do, so you don't need to be in that. If they've given you the feedback, we talked last week about how to accept it, that's great, and that's working in your subconscious. Okay, the boys in the basement are working on the feedback that you've received if you've met in person, or by Skype, or by phone with the folks, if they've or you might have glanced at some of the feedback in the written manuscript, but I hope you didn't spend a lot of time with it. You just let that bake because they've got another week. All right, in the meantime, you are continuing to work iteratively on the remaining chapters of your book. Let's call it 11 through 32. And at this stage, we're looking at clear sentences. There are no notes to yourself, there are no research references. You've incorporated the research. So you want to continue that phase. Again, chapter 32 or 28 may not be as smooth out as chapter 15. I don't know. Maybe your subconscious spoke to you, and you've got that part of the book really polished. I don't know exactly how it's going to work for you. But the point is, at this juncture, you want to introduce the next layer of the funnel, moving down the neck of the funnel, and that is editing. Last week, week 7, I said hands up, back away from the manuscript so that you can give yourself that objectivity. Well, now you're giving yourself objectivity from the part that's it's baking for you because your readers are reading it. However, you still have mini bakes happening with your remaining chapters, let's call it 11 through 32, because you're working iteratively. So let's say now you're at chapter 25. And so some of those early chapters, chapters 15 through 18 are baking. All right, so you let them bake and you continue to work iteratively, and now you want to add the next layer of the funnel, and that is editing. And I call that I Can See Clearly Now, because I love that song by Johnny Nash. I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. And what you want to do is, again, this is still fun. Two things you want to do. You want to, one of the ways I know that my manuscript is getting what I call cleaner, meaning it's smoother, the picture is finer, it's clearer, it's like a photograph that's developing in real time, and oh, you can begin to see it, is what I call the red pen effect. I've mentioned that I use a red pen when I edit, and I learned actually from a New York Times best-selling author who I know personally, that's what she uses. And I remember when she first told me this. I've known her for about 15 years. And I remember when she first told me this, and she was like, if I don't use a red pen, if I use a blue or black pen, it just blends in with the typeface, and I miss it. And I found that to be true. I said, yeah, I keep editing in blue or black ink, and then I go online to make the changes. I go into my Word document, and then I go to the next iteration of that copy, and I read it, and I'm like, didn't I fix that already? Yeah, but I didn't see it when I was looking at the document, looking at the edits in hard copy to transfer online. And that's when I understood that, oh, my friend really was right. So I I started using red pen, and I love that. I call it the way I can tell that my iterations are starting to present a clear picture is that there's less red marks on the page. I call it less blood, but that's just sort of my fun. It's not really bleeding, but it's just sort of a fun way that I describe it, because the page can look really bloody because it's probably more red than there is black typeface in the earlier iterations of chapters. But as I continue to shave and shave and shave and shave, the page gets less bloody, and I'm laughing. I know bloody is not like a funny word, but I'm using it metaphorically. There's less red wash, red ink all over the page. So that's the first way that you can tell. The second way that you can tell, and so you've been editing all along, shaving. I mean, because this is a form of editing. That shaving, the hunk and plunk, or the chunk and plunk that is in the form of hunks, is editing. It's sort of big picture editing. It's not line editing, and we'll get to that in a couple more weeks. So the first way is less red ink on my page. So with each iteration, I go, oh, okay, not as this page is not as red as the last. This iteration is not as red as the previous iteration. The second way I tell is that you're getting to the stage where you want to try reading aloud. Reading aloud will become very important in the next few weeks, but try it now. And you may not want to try it with the whole manuscript. Try it with some chapters that you feel are very, what I call, tight. They you've gone through them several times, and they read in your head. They read in a polished fashion. Now take that chapter, one of those chapters, very polished in your view, and read it aloud. And what you will find is that as polished as that manuscript sounds, in that chapter sounds inside your head, when you read it aloud, you're going to hear things that sound like discordant notes. You're going, that sounds a little clunky. I'm going to get into this a little more in week 9, but that's another way to begin to edit your work and see it increasingly clearer. And you go, oh, as clear as that sounds inside in your head, when it lands on your ears, it's a different experience. Why? Because language, writing is music. It has musicality. So when you read inside your head, you read for meaning. It's that left brain going, well, this makes sense, and this makes sense, and this is grammatically correct. And it's not about musicality. This is when you sound it out, okay, sound on the airwaves, and then your brain has a different experience of it. It's not about meaning anymore. It's about sound. It's about rhythm. It's about musicality. And writing that seemed really polished in here can, in some spots, sounds clunky here. And that is another layer, shaving another layer of, oh, refining and smoothing out the clunkiness. So we'll talk about reading aloud next week in week 9. So that's really, oh, and that's the third thing that you want to do when you begin to edit. And people tend to get really freaked out with grammar and stuff like that. Let me tell you, Grammar Girl is fabulous, and I'm going to talk more about Grammar Girl. Her name is Mignon Fogarty, and she wrote this book, okay, Grammar Girl's Quick and Dirty Tips for Better Writing. But forget about the book for right now, okay? You want to go to Grammar Girl's website. And basically, I've been writing professionally in some form or another for 30 years. Whether it's been in the corporate world for 20 years, whether it's been 7 years as a columnist for the Hartford Courant, or as a book author. That's my most current iteration of professional writing. And I have a bachelor's degree in English and I have a master's degree in education, okay? But I still use a dictionary as a source. I still have to check references. When I started writing for the Hartford Courant, the first thing my editor handed me was a copy of the Associated Press Style Guide. All right, because it doesn't matter how many degrees you have or how much professional writing you've done, different types of writing, particularly if you're writing for other people, other organizations, they have their own style guide. In the corporate world, each company that I work with, you work in corporate communications, they give you a writing guide. Okay, they know you know how to write. Okay, they want you to write in the style that they've established. Okay, it's really, that's all it is. So you might be saying, well, what is the style of my book? Well, the style is your style with grammar rules of English grammar that most people subscribe to. That's your style. Don't worry about all this other, because no, don't worry about dissertation style, or there's all kinds of styles. The only style you care about is your style. Your style, all right, matched up with the rules of, since we are talking about English, the rules of English that most people subscribe to. And remember that language changes. The way we spoke English 400 years ago is different from the way we speak English now. What I love about the Grammar Girl is, first of all, she's young and cute, and she's 21st century, and she's online. And if you go, I'm going to put the link to her website in there. It's called Quick and Dirty Tips. And I discovered her when I was writing my 9th book. And I just said, what is that thing? I always get stuck on whatever that rule of grammar was. And that's okay. I don't have to remember. That's why there's dictionaries, thesaurus, grammar guides, grammar girl, quick and dirty tips. Well, every time I would ask this question, a lot of sites would come up, but quick and dirty came up, and I was like, that's for me. So I'm going to put the link to her webpage in there, and then in the description in YouTube. And I went ahead and bought her book because I so loved. She's really she's look at this cover. Isn't this fun? Oops, look at that. I mean, look at that. It's like she's got a little paper doll on the front, and I loved her humor, and she's young and fresh, and she's edgy but not mean. I don't do mean. That she doesn't do that mean thing that everybody seems to think is popular now. So I bought her book because I was so impressed with her website. Uh, but I realized, truthfully, I've never read the book. And I've never used it as a reference because it's so much easier just to go online. You just type in your question. I have Grammar Girl, quickanddirty.com bookmarked, and bam. And I just went to her website now because I haven't been in it for about a year. Um, because my last book came out earlier this year, so she's really, she's just taken it to a whole new level, and she's got videos. Grammar Girl, okay. She's very entertaining, so you could just and she's erudite, so you can just be on it and just enjoy it like a movie. However, you're using it as a style guide. So this is Miss. I hope I'm pronouncing her name right. Mignon Fogarty, and she's fabulous, and she makes it. This is, I think, one of the reasons why this is, as you can see, a New York Times bestseller, because she took all the drudge out of grammar. Yeah, and she made it fun. Okay, so that's it. Look at the red marks on your page, or if you don't want to use a red pen, that's up to you. But the fewer and fewer ink marks, that means your book is really starting to come together. The language aspect is starting to come together. Start playing with the idea. You don't have to read all of it aloud, but particularly take a chapter that's really polished and say it out loud. It's going to sound differently. Something that you think is really polished is actually still going to sound kind of clunky. And that's okay. That's another layer of editing. And then when you get to sort of the rules, we all use this language, English speakers, particularly if we're native. And so there are things that we've learned, that we have internalized, but there's some things I know that always get stuck in my head. You don't have to know them. That's why Mignon is out there, okay? So try quick and dirty because it's quick and dirty and it's a lot of fun. Okay, bye.